Hello, hello. I have quite a treat for us today. I've been going back and forth with when I'm going to finally publish this episode, as it is one of those just gifts of life that I have discovered over the last 4 years and have daily perfected. A little bit of story time right off the bat. I own Flying with Air. Flying with Air is Miami's apothecary and soon to be only immersion yoga, dance, and aerial studio operating out of Brickell. Super excited, love it. And honestly, this podcast episode completely goes into all of that and how that was able to manifest and how I became her. So 4 years ago, I would say that I was entirely burned out. I was working 90-hour work weeks. I didn't take any time to really take care of my physical appearance. I wasn't doing yoga. I wasn't really, even sleeping or eating a healthy diet. I had missed so many significant events, including weddings and holidays with people that I love. I just felt really alone and just felt like, there had to be more. I have built this empire that was very successful and very much what a lot of people dream of, but at what cost was kind of the question that was always on my mind about 4 years ago. With that, I knew there had to be a change because I also recognized that when I would go to work, people would just see me in a different light than who I knew I was. For instance, I was in my early 20s back then, and with that, I didn't really look like I was in my early 20s. And I honestly, living in Miami, I didn't really fit the aesthetic of how people treat their bodies down here. And one thing I can say about Miami is they very much are into fitness and health and, making sure that their first impression and that they represent themselves in the most beautiful way possible. And there's some controversy about that, but at the end of the day, there is a lot of beauty in that as well. Pun intended. So I, for one, also own an apothecary, holistic medicine and herbalism and organic skincare products. And I was creating such beautiful products that were really changing people's lives. But at what cost? Because once again, it was draining me. It was taking a lot of my energy, and it just seemed like a mismatch of energy. With that, I got really interested in figuring out how people balance their work-life balance, and then also how people find harmony in their energy. This actually opened up what was going to be one of the most profound experiences for learning that I've ever had. And quite frankly, I have several degrees. I have traveled the world several times at this point. And at the end of the day, I've invested so much in education and being able to learn really just everything I possibly can about health and energy and people. With that, even a little bit of psychology as well. And for those of you all that know, I study psychotherapy. So I really am interested in human psychology and behavior and healthy human dynamics and relationships. This all ties into what we're going to talk about today, which actually is not even mine, to be honest with you. I am the relay of the information, but when I was doing my due diligence and I was looking on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Googling, I noticed that nobody really touched on this subject the way that it really should be. to be able to have the profound effects in your life that you deserve. Quite frankly, you deserve it. And that is what I would call being magnetic, being the Marilyn Monroe effect, transfixing, being her. All of these things translate to how do you increase your frequency and your magnetism to be able to attract your dreams, your goals, people, all of these things into your life, health, all of them. And it's so beautiful to be able to be like, hey, I just want to give you this information. Like, I don't feel the need to be like, you should, buy, a $3,000 package. If you want, by all means, like, support the podcast, download the Polarity Masterclass. Like, that's even more in-depth information to what I'm going to share with you. But here is some of like the fundamental key aspects that if you walk away with these, your life is going to change. And it's going to change in such a significant way that you're going to probably want more. And you're going to probably be as quote unquote obsessed with the information as I was. And you're going to go on this journey like I have of just figuring out how frequencies work, how energy works, how people are attracted, how people are repelled, the whole nine yards. So I'm labeling this podcast on, how to make them obsessed, how to be a magnet, how to capture the Marilyn Monroe effect, because this baby is everything. So going back a little bit to 4 years ago, I realized that I needed a change, that I was not representing myself the way that I knew I should be represented, how powerful I am, how magnetic I am, how much of a gift I can bring to the world. And when I talk like this, it comes out very confident and it comes out very self-assured. And some people might even say it comes off like vain. But at the end of the day, none of those things are very bad. These are things that we get told are, hush, hush, don't shine your lights, be, put in the box. And quite frankly, I love to break the boxes. And I love to think outside the box, redefine the box of circle, the whole nine yards. And I invite everyone to do that because that is when you actually get to capture your true essence and figure out who you are. And that goes back to the whole point of this podcast is who am I? And that self-discovery, that growth, that healing. Okay. So just think of someone that, if you want, by all means, you can go back on my Instagram 4 years ago, but think of yourself whenever you are not operating at your best. Let's say you haven't been sleeping well. Let's say that you're not eating well. Maybe you're suffering from heartbreak and you're just not feeling like, okay, I want to wake up and go conquer the world. You kind of just want to be like hidden and, just kind of hide. That is a frequency. And if we're going to translate this into more scientific physics, then now we're operating at a lower level frequency in the theta realm. And the theta realm is a beautiful realm. That's actually where meditation really happens and manifestation can really come forth. But it's more dormant because it is a lower frequency. And whenever we're operating at that energy, nothing feels good. And there's these like rules out there that bad things come in threes and good things come in threes and things like that. Like that's because this is a magnet in itself. If you are thinking negative, operating low, you're going to attract low and negative. Same thing when you're representing your body that way or your temple, as I like to say. So speaking of three things that are bad, I'm going to do a shameless plug and say that the Three Bad Wolves, my new book series, is now available for pre-order. You can get that on the website at flyingwithair.com, or you can go onto my Instagram and you can find it right away at Air Kramer. Three Bad Wolves is about 3 different relationships I had during my 20s and definitely translates so much into this topic. You're going to love them. Go get them now. They're on discount while they're on pre-order. Plus, you get all these cool little, how do you say it? Little goodies and gifts. I kind of combined those two words for a moment, little goodies. So you're gonna love it. So shameless plug, it's good for you. You're gonna love it. You're gonna learn, and it really comes into this topic as well. Okay, going back. So if I am operating at a very low energy, then I'm going to attract that. And I got really fascinated with this concept because I journal a lot. Again, I'm a writer, as I just mentioned. And with that, I noticed that things were just really moving slow all the time for me during that 4 year ago. So for about 6 months, things were just not going according to plan. Like I would make things happen and force them, and then they'd fall apart. Or I would be like, okay, this needs to be achieved by this time. And something after something would keep it from being achieved that way. And it just caused like a lot of turmoil and anger. And it just was like this revolving door of like, okay, why isn't this working? What am I doing wrong? I'm very much an accountable person. So I'm like, how do I fix this? Obviously, something's wrong with me. It can't be everyone else. And it's true. Like your energy, your core source does definitely start with you. With that, I was like, okay, I do believe in physics. I'm very much hard science and spiritual science, and very much like, okay, I know about waves and I know about the observer's effect and I know about how things change whenever you look at them versus when you're not looking at them. And then there's something in physics that's called constructive waves in energy and destructive. So constructive is when two frequencies that are resonating at the same level come together and they amplify each other. So think of like two people that are really good for each other and they come together and they have this beautiful relationship, or they just feel that enormous chemistry and they just can't deny it and they're just drawn to each other. Even when they're trying to like not be drawn to each other, they're still kind of like always popping into each other's lives. That's because they're operating at the same frequency. Versus destructive is the opposite. It's like, okay, the person you immediately meet and you're like, ooh, I do not like this energy. Get me away from this person. This does not work. I do not like this. And, that's constructive, that's destructive. That kind of gives you a framework to like reference it to in the science world. But let's get back into more like high level because not everyone is as nerdy as I am. And that's okay. You're just not at my level like, or my frequency. And that's perfectly fine. I operate at a different frequency and we can come together on other things. So, okay. With this, I got really into human psychology and I became obsessed with the 1930s through the 1950s era of women because old starlets, there's something about them that just draws you in. And they're not like today's celebrities at all because they actually had to put a lot more work into becoming her or becoming who they were at the time than today's celebrities, right? They didn't have social media, for one. They had black and white. They didn't even have color. Can you imagine going through life and not being able to experience color with people when you take a photo or a video or, even meeting them? Like, you just see them as like this black and white noir type of energy. And so to be able to project something different onto a screen and capture an audience attention, like has to require so much more than today, right? And they had to do it in a finite amount of time as well, because again, it's not like they can post on Instagram and their millions of followers will immediately like remember who they are and like them and comment and interact with them. Like back then, like, out of sight, out of mind type of energy if you are not operating at a certain level. So I became fascinated with that. And of course, the most popular woman of the time is Marilyn Monroe. And I wouldn't necessarily say that she was my favorite actress. I'm a big Audrey Hepburn fan and even Clarabelle, but Marilyn Monroe just really had this down pat, and I give her so much respect for this. I understand that overall her life was very controversy filled. It was very sad at times, and maybe that's also why I respect, her essence and her energy, and I relate to her. Is I've had some dark chapters in my life as well for anyone that has followed my path, and I love a good heroine that, still managed to make such an impact even in a short time because she did pass away at like 36 years old. So I became obsessed with everything Marilyn Monroe because I really loved the idea that when she wanted to turn it on, when she wanted to be magnetic, when she wanted to attract attention, she could do it in like a few moments versus when she wanted to stay hidden as like Norma Jean, she didn't want to draw attention. She wanted to just like, you know, weave through the crowd unnoticed. She could do that as well. And for me, I love that because I'm actually an INTJ and I understand that like my friends call me like a popular introvert. Is what they call me. And this is probably because of the Marilyn Monroe effect being in my life so well. Is like, I don't want attention. I'm very much someone that like, okay, attention's good for like certain things, but at the end of the day, give me my fireplace and my book, or give me my yoga mat and, a sunset meditation morning. Or I guess you can have a sunset meditation morning, but you know what I mean. A sunset meditation evening or a sunrise. I'll take them both, quite frankly. I'll take all the yoga I can get. So, but I am somebody that loves my space and I love my me time. So the idea that I could turn it on when it needs to be turned on. For me, that's when I'm on stage, or that's when I need to go and speak, to other people, to do business, or to advocate for a cause, or even the days where I'm like, I just want to feel pretty. Like, I really loved the idea of marrying those two concepts of like, I get to choose when this happens versus I feel like a lot of celebrities don't get the same type of choice. They get like okay, I'm forced to always be on and I'm forced to always like represent myself in a certain type of way in order to, achieve the amount of fame I have, which makes me a little bit sad at the end of the day, like to think of that you always have to be turned on like that. But at the same time, it makes me very sad to like see people go through life and they have the same type of like, how do I say this? They have the same type of like invisibleness without choice. Like they never get noticed and they always feel left out or they feel unwanted or they feel like they're not enough. And that makes me just as sad. So the Marilyn Monroe effect is way better than both of those, in my opinion, because it gives you the power back, it gives you the choice back, and it really helps you redefine who you are when you're representing yourself into the world. So I began reading every book I could on Marilyn Monroe. I began watching her documentaries, listening to music. I, read third-party sources. And meanwhile, I'm also learning the physics behind energy and spirituality. And I'm just marrying these concepts together. And I start playing with it and experiments with it. And today I love it so much because I have completely perfected this to where I can choose when I am her and I can choose when I just kind of like blend into the crowd. And it has taken me 4 years. I would say I really got good at it maybe 2.5 years ago. But now I would say that I'm an absolute master at it. And maybe that's that whole 10,000 hour type of thing is like that absolute mastery came more recently. I would say like within the last 6 months. And with that, people notice. People notice so much. I can go out in public and people will start taking photos of me. Like professional photographers will take photos of me. People will approach me and just start up conversations with me. I can go into a networking event with like the Miami Chamber and I don't have to approach anyone. I don't have to start any conversation. Like people are coming up to me wanting to know what I'm about and what I like, what was my story and all of those different things. And it's amazing. And it even works online. Like when I really learned this concept, I went from having roughly like 15,000 followers on Instagram to like 90 within a few months. And to get from like that massive jump was really shocking, but it was also a lot of proof, like a hardcore proof of like this concept works even outside of like the physical, you see me realm, but on the virtual realm. And that's because it's all about energy. And these are the type of things I was able to prove to myself is like people would fly me across the planet to go and attend conferences. Like I got flown to Dubai and I was like, people will just take care of you for whatever reason. Like I like pulled my neck doing yoga a few days ago, like literally a few days ago. And out of nowhere, this person contacts me and, like is like, hey, I think you're amazing. I think your practice is awesome. Like, how do you do that? XYZ. And I like told them, I was like, well, I'll be honest with you. I mess up too. Like I fall down. I'm not perfect. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. It's a day by day practice. And I actually pulled my neck because I like stepped on my hair. And it's such an embarrassing story, but it's an authentic story, right? And they're like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Do you need to go to the doctor? And I was like, well, no, I'll be fine in a few days. It turns out that like this person actually was the type of doctor that I would need and called in this prescription and, like did a little consult and everything. And I got medicine for it. And I had actually like never physically met this person in my entire life. And I just thought that was amazing that like this type of magnetic energy can be translated outside the physical realm. And that to me is what makes it super powerful. Is like when it's on and you're ready and you're open to it, you can attract so many good things into your life. And that's why I'm like hinting at like the good too, is when I was still mastering this in this last 4 years, before I became a master of it, I would say that 2 year mark when I was making it work, I wasn't always attracting the good things. I was attracting everything. And not everything is good for you, right? Like there's experiences that seemingly look good but aren't, or people that seemingly look good or aren't. And then there's actual like genuine amazing experiences. So that's why this needs to be really just dived deep into and not just, oh, I've got it. I've got the toolkit. Air told me on the podcast, I'm going to run and go. Like, no, I would really invite you to take the Polarity Masterclass or do one-to-one coaching with me. It will save you so much more time versus like going and taking this information and just trying it out for size. Like, it will just save you a lot of heartache and a lot of struggle in the end. And ultimately, that's probably what you want, right? So, okay. Moving forward, here are the steps. So first and foremost, I had to learn how I represent my physical body is the core of where my energy gets held. And what I mean by that is think of like a computer or even think of like a matrix. Have you ever seen that movie, The Matrix? And the core is where all of the programming, all the processing really happens in any type of machinery. And your core is your physical body. So how this physical body is being represented projects out the program that you're going to have into the world. In layman's terms, basically, what we need to do is make sure our outer representation reflects our inner representation. This does start with, taking care of your body, whether it's physical health or just becoming beautiful in what you say is your essence. This may mean you need to change your hair. This may mean that you need to change how you do your makeup. And it's not necessarily a certain look, because we've all seen the models and the actors and the different people of the world. They all have different looks. No one looks the same unless you literally have a twin out there. There's no one that's going to have the same look at you. But at the same time, if you look at Hollywood, or if you look at people that have like enormous amounts of power, like politicians, they're not even having to be physically beautiful to draw in that energy of being magnetic, which is super important. So like, if you were somebody that you're like, I don't recognize myself as being, pretty or star material or a celebrity, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to be pretty to become magnetic or to make people obsessed with your energy. Not at all. It helps. I'll be honest with you. Everything helps. It's just like a toolkit. But at the end of the day, it's not needed. And the physical, as far as aesthetics to being beautiful in this physical realm, negotiable. And also, at the end of the day, like, it really is going to only matter how you feel about your look. So if you feel most beautiful with, no hair, awesome. If you feel most beautiful with extensions, awesome, right? But you have to get as close to the image that you think is the most beautiful representation of this avatar that you have in your body, projected out to the world. That is your core energy self. That also includes the fuel in the tank, right? So like, how are you feeding yourself? What's your diet look like? Those types of things are just as important. Are you sleeping? And then here's the cool thing is, it's not even about just, taking care of yourself, but it's also about the voice and the breath. The huge component of breath work and how that actually translates into our life force energy. And that's what being magnetic is. It's a life force energy of drawing in what we desire and drawing in other people, or, that obsession type of thing that you get with the Marilyn Monroe effect, that transfixing. That is a energy in itself, right? So how we speak to ourselves is everything. This is where people are like, affirmation, affirmation, affirmation. And I believe it. But even if you're not saying, I am rich, I am pretty, I am beautiful, I am successful, I am wanted, I am desired, even if you're not one of those type of people that just, does daily affirmations, that's okay too. But you need to be very mindful of how you speak to yourself and how you allow others to speak to you. One thing I love is an experiment that was done on freezing water. And the jars that this man actually put the water into, he had one labeled as like love and it was beautiful, and another jar labeled as hate and anger and just negative words. And when he froze the water, he realized that the crystal lattices of the water were actually very different. The one that said love and beautiful and all these positive words had these beautiful lattices. And lattices are like crystal structures whenever you freeze water at ice. So, versus the other one had this kind of grotesque and awkward and abstractly, like, not even ugly patterns. And he did the same exact thing with both of these jars, except for one of them he labeled with positive words and the other one he labeled with negative connotations. So that in itself should be enough to prove it to yourself that, like, how we speak to ourselves, the energy of our breath and our vocals does impact us tremendously. And again, if you don't believe in affirmation, that's okay, but be very mindful to not be speaking negative words into your mind, your thoughts, anything. Don't talk, negative about other people. Just let that go. And you're going to find that your magnetic frequency is going to increase so much. I can go on that all day long. So first and foremost, make sure that your outer representation and your inner being match frequencies and that you are projecting the most beautiful version of how you see yourself. Number two is make sure the life force of your being, which is going to be your breath, as well as the liquid inside of you, is only vocalizing, which is what happens when we speak, right? I'm needing to swallow every, minute or two because I'm trying to re-energize my life force to be able to keep talking to you guys about this concept, right? So water and air are very intertwined with our life force. Next, this is one of the most like beautiful things I love about it is it's the I pick me energy. So I have tested this so many different times. And sometimes I purposely put myself in situations just to see if I can get myself out in like almost like a game or simulation type of way. And I will purposely turn it off just to make sure that I know how to turn it on, which is that control aspect. And this really does help with the push and pull when it comes to like drawing people in, is you can turn it off and you'll see people walk away from you. Like you'll see men that were obsessed with you just disappear from your life. And I think it's so fascinating. And then you turn it back on and like they're lining up the door. And you're like, oh my goodness. And if you keep it on, like you'll notice kind of like what I noticed a couple of days ago is, people are taking photos of me like from, across the way. And this person's asking to buy me coffee. And this person wants to take me out on a date. And this person is like just telling me how gorgeous I am on, the line. Like whatever it is, if you leave it on. And most people are like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's leave it on all the time. I'm not like that. I like, to go under the radar. So with that, here's the key. The more you pick you, the more you invest in you, the more you say no, the higher that frequency goes up, which is super interesting. Don't do this to people that you really want to have in your life. Don't do this to people that have high value. And honestly, don't do this to people that are good people because they don't deserve this. Like, don't play with people's emotions. Don't manipulate people. Don't gaslight people. Don't, put people into situationships. Don't lead people on. Like, just be a good person because this does come back and it bounces back like a bad rubber band if you use it to hurt people or to mislead people. And I've seen it time and time again where people have tried to manipulate women into loving them or charm them. This is like a Robert Greene thing. He has an entire book called The Art of Seduction. Be very wary of reading that book, not because it's not true, but it's because he left out the second half of the book is when you seduce people and when you manipulate people and you mess with people's emotions, the universe knows, God knows. And energy always has a bounce back. This is like Newton's laws. Every reaction has a reaction. So if you put it out there, it's going to snap back at you. And I'm not even saying this to like, scare you. I'm just saying this because you need to know that this happens. So be very careful how you use this energy. With that, how you speak to yourself, how you're representing, how you're saying no is going to have a profound effect. Here's something else that Marilyn Monroe did that makes such a big difference when it comes to how she was able to carry this energy throughout her life. She knew when to step back. She knew when to give something space, and she knew whenever to let go. And with that, some people would say like, okay, that's why she had the divorces, or that's why, she had the different types of addictions. Well, she was resonating at such a high frequency and it being on at such a magnificent level of like the entire planet knew her name. Yeah, that's the bounce back, right? Like when I just mentioned to you about, don't keep it on for too long or don't use it negatively, is there is a reaction to every reaction. It's going to happen. So as you are going through and you're trying to draw in energy and attract, remember it starts with your core. And you have to shut down the system sometimes, just like you're shutting down a computer or recharging a computer to make sure that you're doing it in a healthy manner. Because then you're going to prevent like burnout. You're going to prevent like the bounce back and just all these other negative things that could come into your life. Okay. So the pick me energy also has to do with not acting in desperation. I love the Matrix. So I'm going to bring up the Matrix. And there is this speech that Orpheus does whenever he's like presenting Xeon about like the attack is coming. And this is actually, I believe, the second Matrix. This isn't the first Matrix. But he gets on stage and he says a few different lines that like really translate to this world. And if you take these home, like, and marinate on them, they can have a profound effect on you, just like they had a profound effect on me. But he says these lines. The first one that comes to my mind is, my beliefs do not require you to believe, which gives you a healthy amount of detachment and a healthy amount of certainty for you to be able to accomplish your goals. Another thing he mentions is, it's not a matter of hope, it's a matter of time. And I love that, because if you are worried about, you know, something happening in your life or someone choosing you or achieving that goal, it rewrites the entire thing, because now it's not a matter of if it happens or if only or what if, it's a matter of time. And time can work for you or it can work against you. I'm choosing to make time my friend, because I do believe that the universe delivers you exactly what you need, exactly as it should be. And one final line I really love that comes later in the movie is, after a scene where they just didn't get what they wanted from the timekeeper master, and it just didn't seem like it went well, and it could have caused a fight, and they get back in the elevator, and basically Neo looks at Morpheus and he goes, so that didn't work out. Like, what do we do now? Like, the whole plan is kind of ruined. And, I'm paraphrasing. And Morpheus goes, it worked out exactly as it should. And Neo's like, how do you know? And he goes, because we're still here. We're still alive. And this does reflect back to his speech earlier. And this is something that, if you really want to capture the energy of making people drawn to you and becoming magnetic, pay attention to this line, because it makes such a big difference in your mindset. And your mindset is the final piece to this puzzle. Above everything else, it's your mindset. And the mindset goes, I remember the path behind me that led me here. I do not know the path ahead. My hope is knowing the path behind me will deliver me to the path ahead. And I trust this because I am still here. So if you are someone that is in this turmoil or confusion and things are not working out and things are just standing like they're not going according to plan and they're driving you up the wall, and it's a relationship that you really love this person and you can see, so much good coming in a relationship with them, but things are just in turmoil and they're messy and it doesn't make any sense. You're still here. Like, that says something. Like, the relationship is still technically here. Let it unravel. You know where you've been. And if you've gotten this far, imagine what you can do if you go forward, right? And then same thing with work. If things are just hitting your head against the wall and things aren't working out with your dreams, remember, you're still here. Trust the path behind you that led you here to this moment, and know that it was exactly the path that unraveled the way it should, because you're still alive and able to go forward. In biblical terms, this comes out as far as God's not finished with you because you're still alive. And that is so magnetic. To capture that concept will change everything. One last story time, and we'll get straight into, how do we just do our action plan steps here. I have realized that this works so well when it comes to boundaries and the pick-me energy. I am decided moving forward about 2 years ago, when I was going back and forth between attracting everything and not just what was good for me, of every single time I attracted something, I'm going to choose what my higher self would say is best for me. That required me learning boundaries So in 2023, that's what I really focused on was boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. And just navigating that and not letting somebody else channel the energy I was drawing in for their needs. Because people are out there like that. And that was such a wake up call. You can be attracting in energy, becoming magnetic, drawing everyone's attention. And they call them energy vampires, but like you could be this magnetic core force. People notice that. And then they come in and they channel your energy for their wants or their needs. And this is how, especially like women, can be taken advantage of by men. Is they'll come in, they'll create soul ties, or they'll channel your energy for their gains, and then they'll leave you high and dry. And that is so painful. And I really want you to avoid that at all costs. You do not deserve that. So beware of the energy vampires that will come and siphon your energy, or they will come and they'll channel it for their own purposes. And I guarantee you, their purposes are selfish and ego driven or even fear based and not for the higher good. And I just want what's best for you. So that's kind of my warning on that note. All right. So this is a lot. And again, this is 4 years of knowledge that I'm trying to put into one podcast episode. By all means, message me your questions on Instagram, book any type of like individual sessions. I will go into more detail with that. I can very much take your life and pinpoint all the different ways that we can kind of tweak things and turn this on for you and give you the choice when you want to turn it on and turn it off. And we can do that easily within 2 months. Like your whole entire framework can change in 2 months. Mine did. I've done this with people in my life. I've had people watch me and kind of study me to see how I do it. And it's just transforming and it's powerful and it's an amazing energy to have and to carry into the world. And if you're using it correctly and ethically and morally, it's even better because I love creating beauty and helping people heal and helping people find love. And it's just everything. Self-discovery is everything. And when you take your gifts and you give it to other people because you want what's best for them as well, it, for me, this is ego, but it makes me feel so important. Like I have my dharma and I'm fulfilling it quite well. All right. With that, I am going to go recharge my life force energy and be a magnetic person for the world. Maybe, a little bit of obsession in there, but used for good, used for good. And as always, so I guess I just feel like to tell you guys I love you today. I do love you all. You guys are so amazing. You make everything worth it. And with that, as always, thank you for healing and growing with me today.